Hey guys, Lotus Streams here, coming at you with another session of Tactica, in this case as a follow-up video to my Biel-Tan review. So if you haven't seen that one yet, check it out first, and in this video I will solely talk about some possibilities that you can do with the new detachment, and also obviously the new rules, specifically the one rule, the most interesting one, is the strength from death. Alright, strength from death. For just as a reminder, upon unit destruction within 7 inches of one of your units, you can perform a free soul burst action, and you can move, shoot, run, turbo boost, or charge immediately, no matter what phase it is, even in the enemy phase. Doesn't matter. The units cannot do so if they have mixed rules, so no cheesing there. If they're locked in close combat, fleeing or go to ground, and you can only do it once per turn. But remember, once per turn means once in your turn, once in their turn, for a total of 3 actions per game turn, which is actually pretty interesting. Also remember, it works on unit destruction. So let's say we take those raiders here, and we put something inside, and the raider turbo boosts down the middle. The radar cannot use a soul burst action to shoot after turbo boosting because it's a vehicle, and it's only non-vehicle models that are affected. However, if the radar gets destroyed, that counts as a unit destroyed within 7 inches of the occupants, and in that case they would gain a fewer action, which is actually really nice, considering if this plops down by a steep strike and they get to shoot, that means they get to shoot guaranteed again if the radar actually goes down. Now I'm not sure if it works differently. For example, if I have something next to it and that one dies, the guys inside should not be affected because they're not on the board for all game purposes until they disembark. So that's a way to play around that. But if you want to take the transport, they will most likely get a free move. That also applies to obviously getting out and charging and so on, and gives them a good use for transports basically. What else is buffed by this? Basically, you can imagine everything that's fast is probably buffed with this. Just to give you a quick example, let's say, a already fast unit, and the fastest unit in the Eldar Codex movement-wise is the Swooping Hawks. Swooping Hawks are the by far fastest unit because they can move 18 inches with their little jump packs. So Swooping Hordes going forward 18. Now they or anybody else kills something around 7 inches, which is not really hard, right? Because 7 inches is over here. So we have basically 25 range to reach something that has to die. And if that one dies, they can either do another shooting attack or move another 18. And now imagine this one here. Those guys are still able to charge because there was 1 movement, 2 movement, and charge. So essentially, for the people saying, "Oh, I'm losing battle focus," essentially the same thing. It's not the same thing. The battle focus is basically another action in addition to what you already have. This one is that and already using actions that you already did. So in this case, much better for stuff that needs to go forward. So swooping hordes are a bad example of something that needs to go forward because they have haywire grenades, but they can only use one, and they don't necessarily have good close combat, right? So not necessarily a good example on what you not want to have at the front. But considering all these options, because we have Dark Eldar, Harlequin, and whatnot, there's a bunch of guys that actually do want to go very, very fast if they can. Best example obviously would be something like jet bikes, because they can destroy targets very, very easily. So what you essentially can do, for those guys that think battle focus is better, you take your bikes, if you can get into range of something within 7 inches, which might happen, for example something in a drop pod, you can shoot it down and shoot again, or you can shoot it down and move 12 back and then assault move somewhere else. So basically, you can do um, nice little drive-bys with this. You don't necessarily have to consider this a very aggressive movement because all of this happens in your own turn, right? So there's no disadvantage of doing this. You just have to make sure the units are destroyed completely, obviously, because that's the only condition you have. And considering that, the faster you are, the better, because this detachment rewards you being close to the enemy, which is usually something Eldar do not want, but it is something that you should be doing to maximize this effect. There's also the little Beastmaster effect. If you take the Beastmaster, for example, that's a very, very inexpensive unit. 10 points, very fast, because it's a Beastmaster. So 12-inch movement. And now that Beastmaster is gonna go her 12 and is also gonna run. Like over here, let's say. I don't know, it ends up over here, or she, sorry. And now the enemy would say, well, it's a lonely Beastmaster, I gotta gun it down because otherwise it's gonna charge and it's gonna be annoying and they are really quick. Oftentimes they have a few of these fellows in their wake and obviously they can deal a lot of damage, but they're very, very squishy, so not necessarily a threat to you. Now this changes because imagine these guys here killing something over there. Something over there dies, the Beastmaster's making another 12-inch move, and then a charge with fleet. Not getting slowed because they're beasts. So this becomes very, very dangerous very quickly. And you also have to imagine if you shoot him down, or her down, then the bikes will get a free move, attack, or whatever. So as you mess up the threats in range, the basically the idea of killing something is worse and worse, although you always have to kill something in your own turn, because obviously you can't just let them do whatever they want to. So it requires good positioning and good target choice of your enemy, and counterbalance that with your own target choice and positioning, both in your and his face. Right, so what we have here is, for example, these guys here, very quick, very mobile. Beastmaster is a good choice. I already said transports will work very nicely because of upon destruction they die. That's especially true for something like Star Weavers, because Harlequins and so on really rely on that invuln saves, and once you get down, you can at least get your run or charge or whatever you want to. And obviously, Sky Weavers are very good with this tactic because other than jet bikes, Sky Weavers actually do want to get in close combat because they have very, very good capabilities there. Now, in addition to this, there is formations included that allow the Harlequins to run and then charge. So these guys can actually pull something off like a move, run, charge thing, which is really interesting. Now, mind you, there is some limits here. I think if the Skyweaver moves and then turbo boosts, and then something dies around him, I don't think he gets to do a assault, because I think all the restrictions still apply. It doesn't override that. But and if he uses his movement twice, obviously he would still be able to charge since it doesn't count as using the movement. Okay. Now ignore all of these walkers. They are really interesting, but not right now because they are vehicles, and you don't count vehicles as something. But obviously the Incan is very interesting in this matter. First of all, because she can teleport basically wherever she needs to be. She can do so in the enemy turn, and as soon as something dies around her, you can basically move her into close combat. She makes everything fearless around her. So basically you can also go to ground with whatever you want, make it really hard to kill you. And then as soon as she's born, everybody's standing up with fearless again. And she can basically make a charge if you're very unlucky. And you don't want to get charged by something that has armor bane, flesh bane, and monstrous initiative on a unit of her choice, because she shows up whenever she wants to. Other stuff would be Reaver jet bikes, because obviously Reaver jet bikes and I mean Hellions too, but Hellions suck. So yeah, I don't know. Just take the Reavers. It's the same slot. You're fighting over a slot. Reavers and Sky Weavers pretty similar, or except the Reavers are a little bit less expensive than the Sky Weavers. It is easier to make it a stub of Sky Weavers though because they have inbound saves and these guys do not. So it's a little bit tricky. But these guys obviously profit very, very much from getting additional movement, from getting um, basically charges in the enemy phase and all that stuff. They like that. Fast enough for sure. Already talked about these guys. All of these choices are good because they are beasts, and beasts are always quick enough to make use of this. And I just talked about the Beastmaster well because he's a single option that you can take. So you don't have to make like a gigantic squad of beasts because you profit more from minimal units. Um, Warp spiders. If you think warp spiders are mobile, think again. Warp spiders now are even more mobile. They can actually take power blades. They're not that shabby in close combat. They also have hit and run. So these guys here, together with Harlequins, have also the ability to move at the enemy phase twice, basically, if something dies. Flicker jumping, all that stuff is pretty good. And obviously, this was a strong unit before. It won't get any weaker in this kind of detachments because battle focus is something they don't necessarily need. And if they can get a free movement instead, I mean, why the heck not, right? Um, Already talked about the dead bikes. The same applies for Shining Spears, obviously, because Shining Spears need to be in close combat to be effective. And if you get charged by something that has a lance, they will probably die because their initiative is too high and the AP is really good. So we can send these across. They can go in very small squads if they want to. And there you go, got your function. Swooping Hawks, I mean, I think it could actually work. I have to play around with these. They are very inexpensive and their guns require the right target to be effective, but they can have a lot of Dakar and you can run them in the shrine if you want to. So at Ballistic Skill 5 they will be very annoying. And being able to plop some wire grenades wherever you need to is actually pretty nice. And do not underestimate 36 free movement. That is like gargantuan amount of units you can move and still plop down your haywire if you want to and still shoot because there's nothing restricting you of doing all four. And then upon destruction of the vehicle, somebody else might be able to get a new free move. So it's basically all about killing. Um, Talking about killing, there is obviously some other options here. The vehicles and so on have some good firepower, but then there is the firepower lord. Now remember, this guy here, the Wraith Knight, and all Wraith Lords are non-vehicle models. They are monsters and gargantuan creatures. So it works for Wraith Lords, it works for him. So if he nukes something with his laser, or he shoots something with his scatter laser and so on, or something else shoots around him and he's moving full 12, he gains a monstrous amount of distance he can move, and it's a guy that has stomp attacks, right? Stomp attacks are just so immensely strong in this game. He also has access to close combat Ds, so why even shoot your D weapons when you can just get into close combat instead, obviously. So basically prepare a target, attack that target with, let's say, Swooping Hawk, Haywire grenades, make him move 12 inches, 7 inches to the apart from the target, which is 19 inches, which is very easy to get. And there you go. You get a free move, and you bounce that Ravenat to the next unit ahead. I'll do a little bit of a roundup at the end, but this guy does profit from that a lot. Gargantuan creatures have strength 10, so even if you run him without the D, he's gonna kill something in the assault phase, and it's gonna make him even more cost efficient because he can target multiple targets and then even charge. All right, Solitaire. Now people don't necessarily play Harlequin. I have played against a bunch of Harlequin pairs and I play them myself. Solitaire is very, very, very fast. And he's really, really annoying too, because if he gets into close combat, he's probably gonna kill something. He's very expensive, so he has to get into combat to combat to combat, and that's exactly what this does. Basically, if you're running a solitaire, you can make your 12. You can do another 12 if you're lucky, and you can still use your blitz to move very, very quickly. So he has some nice abilities, just like the Harlequin have, that will propel him forward quicker than um, other choices, and he will probably get stuck in combat somewhere, which is really good because he has hit and run, and you don't want him to get shot off the board. He's too expensive to suicide him into something. Okay, talking about stuff that could be transported inside of transports that likes getting free actions. Um, these guys, Dire Avengers, Guardians, even Storm Guardians, doesn't matter, even Storm Guardians with fusion guns. All of this stuff in transports, dropping down, shooting something, something dies, another round of shooting. For example, Die Avenger Shrine, activate the one use only thing and use it twice. Easy peasy. So basically, very, very effective at doing that. Way better than the Warriors, to be honest, because these guys have better stuff to do. And imagine there is no Cabalite Trueborn here. It's just normal Cabalite Warriors. So these guys here are the better choice in that matter. Um, the same applies for all close combat or close range units. So you can even gear up on Medusa if you want to, and then laser some fools. Which is sounds pretty funny, but these things really, really hurt. They're expensive, but they do hurt, and they might even do something in the sword phase. Which is funny, by the way. The Medusa could kill something in Overwatch, and while the enemy is trying to charge you, you could also try to charge something else if you destroy him while doing so. So you basically can get a counter charge. Very interesting. Um, Other close combat stuff that likes to do that is all kinds of race. These guys, fusion guns, all that kind of stuff is really, really powerful in conjunction with free shooting. And these guys here especially strong because they get to make a charge move. So that fixes one of the big problems that these guys have. They get killed too easily by shooting, but they're very, very doable in close combat because there's not much that has strength 6 in general to even hurt them. Most of the time they're getting wounded on 6s. But if you drop those things in a radar and the opponent destroys the radar, you get out, you charge, there you go, they end close combat. And that is actually really, really nice to have considering everything else. Striking Scorpions can work because they have Infiltrate, but it's earliest at turn 2. So Striking Scorpions work better with a second strike by Black Guardians, for example, than anything else. Dark Reapers is a very interesting thing. I think Dark Reapers do not profit as much from this detachment as others, because a Dark Reaper squad does not want to be close to something. They are relentless rocket launcher platforms, and while a second round of shooting with Dark Reapers is extremely valuable, most of the time they don't want to be as close. So this would be a new style of playing Dark Reaper, basically as infantry hunters without a rocket upgrade, and then grab some transports and shoot some fools down. Because Dark Reapers have one potential in this detachment that others don't. They can take out squads very, very easily. Like, the amount of firepower Dark Reapers put out is massive. And obviously they are fire magnets. But if you put them inside of a vehicle and drop them down somewhere, you get at least 2 rounds of shooting. So that's a pretty good guarantee. And you can also choose the target pretty much however you want, because it's 40 freaking age range on all their weapons. Very simple to use, but maybe not the best synergistic effect. I don't know. You can basically make anything work here if it's not a weaker, just for the sole fact that it's another round of shooting. Same applies for the artillery, basically, but if artillery is within 7 inches of an enemy unit, that's probably not a good idea. So these guys here are one of the reasons you would not like to use these, although they could be doing that because they're not a vehicle after all. Yeah, that is, I think, all I have. I did not mention like normal Harlequin troops for charging and so on, but it's actually pretty simple. One thing I actually want to mention here is um, Black Guardians over here. All Black Guardian units or Black something something units have a trick up their sleeve that allows them to come in turn 2 when you have an attack on a 2+, and not scatter within 9 inches of an opponent. So basically you can choose your target. You can also choose rear armor or whatever. You drop the Viper down there, you drop some shuriken cannons, or you drop some fusion guns with the Storm Guardians, and basically destroy something upon need. And this one could trigger an effect for themselves if they are of this kind, or if you're dropping War Walkers or Vipers, you could obviously trigger an effect for a different Eldar unit. So that's the one exemption where I would say, well, that's a pretty good one to support something because you have multiple options here, and you will be in range, and you will have very strong weapons that can take something out. So if you gear up on star cannons on these guys, they will probably kill something pretty easily. For example, 2 War Walkers or something. Clocking at 150 points can take out most infantry squads and transports altogether, depending on their positioning, which is obviously going to be very good. I really think that this kind of stuff has potential, and you have to play a little bit around with it. I think that's the main issue here. So you have to be able to understand how it's supposed to work and choose your army wisely, because there's a lot of options here, like Wave Blades, where like Incubi, for example, that are rather ineffective when played badly, and some stuff that people don't even know or consider bad, like Shining Spears, for example, that I think really, really profit more from this more than others. So let's grab these guys real quick and go onto a map. Simply because visualizing is always easier than theory crafting for obvious reasons. Actually, I want to have a living map if possible. So let's load in another thing. This looks pretty alive, so to say. There we go. We have a bunch of Chaos Marines getting at it here. Okay, so we have some Nurgle stuff over here. We have some demons in the back. And now we're coming in with our little Eldar force. I want to figure out how do we make this work. Let's say we have a Wraith Knight. Let's say we have transports of any sort. Doesn't matter if it's a Venom Star Weaver, Raider. The big thing is they should be open-topped. That's the only issue. Because open-topped vehicles are really nice. Deep striking is obviously great, so plus points for using raiders and so on. Let's also take some swooping horns. Let's assume we have the Hinkan. And let's take some sort of close combat unit like the Shining Spear. And remember, the Wraith Knight is extremely inexpensive. We also have to take some kind of scalar bike unit or something like that. And then we obviously deploy close enough. Let's say here, 24 inches away. About here. And here. And here. Like so. And the Incan is obviously in reserve. Now something we have here, for example, is a little fella over here, the Herald of Nurgle. Now the interesting part is the entire thing here starts with moving 18 with the Swooping Hawks. That's why I like Swooping Hawks, by the way. And as you can see, the Swooping Hawks are already in effective range, right? They're not yet in range within 7 inches. That's pretty hard to do, but they are already pretty close, and they are ready to fire. They are in range of everything they need, because 18 inches is pretty close nearby. So they can get a kill on something very easily, but we don't have to trigger them yet, because we are currently using their normal steps, basically. So if the jetbike moves like, I don't know, maybe here. Doesn't matter, the jetbike unit doesn't have to pull forward. They can if they want to, but they don't have to. Let's say they open fire onto the Herald or something. Or maybe they don't, I don't know. We can also choose something like this, which is closer to Earth. So we say, okay, well, let's shoot the spawn. Because if you kill the spawn, that's a unit dead, right? Because that counts. That is a different unit than this one. So if I shoot this spawn to death, which I probably will because it doesn't have any armor saves to speak of, and we can load up on good guns here, now our action is triggered. Now we have different options. First option is we shoot again and kill him. In this case, there's a second target that is valid, that is close nearby, and that is actually achievable to kill. So in this case, probably the best choice would be killing him. And then the swooping hawks can use that soul burst as a domino effect for their own purposes on the second kill. Let's say we do so, we kill the sorcerer, so we get lucky there. By the way, it doesn't have to be them killing him. That was just an example, because it could be anything else that they make killing that guy. It doesn't have to be them. The important thing is the swooping hawks are close enough to profit. That's the idea. So if we say, okay, let's get a free round of shooting, we shoot here, and then you have to basically take a tactical choice here. If you want to try to run away before you do this, you obviously have to pick a different action. If you want to have the choice of running afterwards, you have to be close enough to the enemy, right? Otherwise, you can't use the soul burst action, because the soul burst action happens immediately upon unit death. So these guys have to decide, oh, what are we going to do? Do we move another 18? That's, by the way, how ridiculous this is, because if here was a vehicle, we could charge that now with fleet. So how about that? Very, very quick Eldar units. Becoming even faster. Or even running, we could run then get away. Or we could say, all right, we're going to take that shooting attack and take out the Herald of Nurgle, and then we're going to shoot at something else. Or we will run, because we can still run, as you remember. And the last option would be we try to charge something. So upon death here, we could charge them into here. Sounds pretty funny, but it's weird. They would always get Overwatch, but obviously we don't want that with these guys. Let's say we do the other thing now, and the Brave Knight obviously also will move up. As you can see, he's not too fast with normal speed, but as soon as something tries to engage these guys as bait, basically, and let's say they don't move anywhere else, it's now the Great Unclean One's turn, he's gonna move up, he's gonna munch on these guys. Let's say he destroys them all, because that's what's most likely gonna happen. That immediately triggers the death for the Wraith Knight. The Wraith Knight is, let's say he is in range. I'm pretty sure he is in range. Okay, he was in range. As you can see, the range is extremely important. That means he can do a counter charge. Or that means he can shoot the D-shot in something else if he wants to, depending on his war gear. That also means the these catapult guys could open fire into the Great Unclean One. So basically, the Great Unclean One does have this decision: do I actually want to destroy these guys? Because if I do, I will get punished, for sure. Just because of the way this stuff positions. So basically, what you want to have against a close combat army is something like this. Like a little the 7 inches bubble. This to here is 7 inches, this to here is 7 inches, 7 inches, 7 inches, 7 inches. So basically this playstyle requires you to be close. Now there is formations to fix that. There is stuff that allows you to gain 14 on this stuff. And now I think you understand a little bit more why Soul Burst is so massively important and how do we use that in the close combat phase to our advantage, because most of the stuff brings you closer to the enemy, which is not necessarily something Eldar like, but there is Eldar units that do like that. So in that case, we have to pick our army composition right with the right amount of shooting to trigger, or the right amount of stuff to waste, because the more units we can send in here that they have to nom, the more stuff we can send in to kill them after, aka 10-point Beastmaster. And then on top of that, we still have the Incan and other shenanigans. So if they were killed in that phase, she's gonna join in right there. You have to be very careful to not give her a soul burst action so he doesn't immediately kill him, but she can still charge him since she arrived in the other turn. Same goes for here. Radar drops down here. Wraithguard cannot, the Wraith Blades cannot charge. However, if you kill the transport in their phase and it is open topped, they can assault with the soul burst action, because it's not your turn anymore. So basically you can circumvent the fact that you're arriving by deep strike reserves and so on, by choosing the enemy's turn to arrive. And now, mind you, you can do this very, very inexpensive, right? Because you can put them in Venoms, for example. A Venom is not really too much points. It is really annoying, though. It has a lot of firepower, so you don't want to make that Venom stay alive. And the problem is, though, if the Venom dies, then you have to make sure that nothing around stays close enough so it doesn't get assaulted. And that's, for some armies, it's a really big issue. Not every army can do that. If you drop that Venom next to the Storm Surge, the Storm Surge can't necessarily run away. So the more mobile it is, the worse this gets for the opponent. So basically the takeaway message is here. You have to be very careful when you're designing lists like these, because the entire thing here requires you to be close, and the more units can perform the soul burst action, the better it is. Because otherwise, suiciding units is not necessarily a good idea. Let's say the enemy goes a different route, because there's so much tactical options here I have to talk about, but I'm not gonna go over all of them. Let's say this is a lonely shining spear. Now, obviously, the enemy is not stupid. He will learn very quickly, or lose a lot of games, that that guy here is very, very dangerous, because obviously, if you kill him, somebody else gains a free action. That's probably gonna deal more damage than you removing him and all the damage he could do. But that's not the issue. The issue is that guy. I call them heroes because oftentimes lonely models have a bigger purpose than dealing damage, which is distractions and objective holding, all that stuff. That's why they're heroes. That little hero here can still charge into something he can't kill. That's the issue. So if he wants to die, he will die. What does happen if he dies? This thing here gets a free movement and is going to charge and kill the next unit and the next unit. As long as everything is in range and as long as you have enough guys to die, you can trigger this over and over again, and you can trigger it twice. As I said, you can trigger that effect in your own, because that was my charge phase, right? And if he then kills something else, the Yinkan can again fight, because that is 2 different turns. You can only do it once per turn, but in this case, every game turn has 2 turns, not 1 turn. So very interesting combinations there. And basically, the more units you have, the better the effect is, because it's more likely to be within 7 inches of a unit that has not performed an action yet, right? Because if you have less units, that chance goes down. And in addition to that, you like to have well-spread units. So if you spread them half across the map, you have a lot of freedom to choose where you want to die. And in addition to that, you can use the enemy's position and see, where if there's something dying over there, how can we use that? So you don't have to suicide yourself in, because it's death in both forms, in the enemies and your own. The Incan has the bonus effect of being very, very scary. Most of the Eldar stuff is not as scary as this thing, and can obviously be used to provide some kind of bullet sponge for these kind of matches. And since she regains wounds very, very quickly, she is a very good fire magnet. As soon as your own models die, she regains wounds in the formation even on a 2+, which is ridiculous. But I don't even think she needs that, since it triggers per model death. Now imagine like 20 freaking razor wings, and basically she gains 2/3 of that as wounds. So she's unkillable unless you focus her down, and that's why you charge, right? That's why you have the free charge. Because you're killing something here, you're killing the Great Unclean One, you get a free Soul Burst action, you're charging in here. You don't get any attacks anymore because you're still on your old initiative step and you don't get to attack again. But who cares? You're in a close combat with something else. That's amazing. She cannot die as long as she doesn't finish anything off. So it's basically the same idea that you have with Harlequins with a hit and run. You basically try to engage targets that you can't necessarily kill, but then that are not strong enough to withstand another round of combat. So you can flee from combat into combat. And obviously the Harlequin have the bonus points on being able to do this even better because they have hit and run in general, so they can move, charge, attack, halfway kill it, then perform another charge in that same phase, engage another target, move again, and so on. So basically, if you're fighting against Tau and whatnot, this can be very effective. And bonus points for using Autarchs with Banshee Mask, by the way, for denying all kinds of Overwatch. Actually, you can use Banshees as well if you want to, because they're not that terrible, but they're pretty terrible in terms of what transports they have. So now they have some Dark Eldar options. Nice. Very well thought out thing, I believe. I think that's something the Eldar were lacking. They have really, really cool close combat units, but nobody uses them because, first of all, the shooting is straight up overpowered, and second of all, the melee units don't have any delivery systems that can take them reliably where they have to be and then be able to charge. The Dark Eldar have that, but they have shitty units. So that's the difference. This is a buff for both of these playstyles and Harlequins, as I already said, because the Harlequins have the most cheese up their sleeve that you can use to amplify the effect of the Soul Burst actions. That's basically what I'm trying to say. Because being able to move, run, and charge, and then disengage, or do something else in the next turn that you kill something, like the combination is massive. If you can pull it off, you can basically do something like that. Let's assume this is a Skyweaver squad, right? So you're moving your 12, then something dies. You're moving your 12, you're over here. Let's not say Skyweaver, whoops. I'm already failing. Let's say 6 inches with normal Harlequin. Another 6 inches with normal Harlequin. Run move with fleet with Harlequin. Let's say 4 inches. Charge with fleet with Harlequins. Engage that unit. Not destroying it, getting stuck there. Then in the enemy phase, you destroy the unit. And upon triggering destroying the unit, you gain a new ability because it's the next Soul Burst turn, and you charge the next unit. And then destroying it or not destroying it, depending how good it goes. And after that, if you're still feeling like, nah, I'm not gonna stay in close combat, you can still hit and run. And then be free. So that is like, holy moly. You can chain that kind of thing very easily, but you have to choose the right target, because if the target gets destroyed, they come to a stop and just get gunned down. And you have to be Obviously quite lucky with the rolling, but to be honest, it's not that hard to kill something. Like against all of this Rhino and Razorback spam, it's really, really simple to kill vehicles and triggering this because it does not work for your own vehicles, but vehicle deaths still count, because there's a crew inside, still count as destruction for your purposes. So that's just some food for thought here. I think it's a bunch to take in. I'll play a battle report as soon as I can. That's not even considering the Black Guardian stuff. The Black Guardian stuff is way, way, way more straightforward. But it has less synergistic effect of taking these in this kind of detachment than the others, I think, because the Black Guardian stuff is very synergistic with itself in their own detachment, but not necessarily in this kind of stuff. But I can see some great combos here happening, and I obviously want to use units that I usually don't use, and that's exactly what this detachment is made for, which is something I like. You can tell what you want about Games Workshop. I always like if they make it more interesting, and Chaos for sure has been made more interesting with the Traitor Legion supplement, and I think they have done the same for the Eldar, and I'll try it out. Alright, that's it from me. So stay tuned for battle reports with the Eldar faction. I'll try it out for sure. As you can see, I already have everything prepared. This building is also in progress, and then we'll see what we can pull off with this kind of stuff. And it's gonna be really fun, I'm sure of that. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed watching, and happy wargaming.